Welcome back to Inside Assemble AI, the podcast where we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming business strategy and innovation. I am Mac, and alongside my co-host Sam, we continue our mission to cut through the AI hype and bring you the real insights from the leaders who are implementing AI strategically in their organizations. In our previous episodes, we have explored AI in marketing strategy and education innovation. Today, we are diving into what might be the most critical factor for AI success: leadership.
Today's episode is called Agentic Leadership in AI Transformation. And the question we would like to address in this episode is how do non technical executives successfully lead AI initiatives that drive real business impact? We'll explore that, what it means to orchestrate AI driven workflows, identify strategic pressure points where AI delivers fast wins, and build governance frameworks that prevent AI from becoming a black box. Our guest today coined the term agentic leadership in his recent article, sparking ideas about this discussion. So, whether you're a C suite executive exploring AI transformation, or a business leader struggling with AI strategy, or someone responsible for driving digital innovation, this conversation will provide the framework you need to lead from the front.
Today, we are joined by Dave Catalano, a former opera singer turned McKinsey consultant, currently finishing up his MBA at University of Oxford. David has deep experience in cross-functional business transformations, culture and change management, and technology solution implementation. While at Oxford, he served as a course tutor and speaker at the university's AI Summit, where he presented on autonomous AI agents and his concept of agentic leadership for business leaders. Originally from the Chicago area, David and Sam share a connection as proud alumni of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Dave, we are excited to have you here to share your insights on this critical topic.
Well, thank you for having me, Mac and Sam. It's a pleasure to be here with you both.
So let's get into the main section, Q&A. So Dave, you coined the term agentic leadership in your recent LinkedIn article. Now, our audience includes a lot of business leaders who get nervous when they hear too many technical jargons. So how would you explain this mindset to a senior executive who is maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by all the AI buzz? And why is this concept so critical right now for any executives?
Yeah, it's a great question. Reassuringly, I'll say that I also come from a place of not being a technical AI expert. I'm not a computer engineer, but I have seen in my work at McKinsey and research at Oxford, different approaches that leaders have had to this exact issue. I think the most assuring thing is that the actual mindset shift is not really changing how leaders approach leading their teams. It's actually more about how, as AI and other tools that we use kind of progress and become more collaborative in nature, it's about how can we bring those soft skills that we bring with our human teams over to how we leverage these tools. So I think actually the good news is for business leaders, it's a lot of the same types of things that have led them to success in their current roles. You know, it's this shift from using AI as a tool to orchestrating these AI agents that are more autonomous and intelligent teammates into accomplishing tasks for the team. So I think it's not as big of a shift as a lot of people think it is. At the moment.
Totally agree with you. It's not a big of a shift, but it's a powerful shift in thinking about that and also changing our mindset about being receptive to AI adoption. So what was the moment or experience that made you realize you needed a new leadership framework or mindset specifically for AI transformation?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's just observing over the last few years the improvements in these tools, going from very basic assistance, able to kind of organize and maybe accomplish a couple simple tasks to now being able to really function autonomously with a lot less direction and prompting. This shift in kind of how the tools are able to be used and their capabilities lends itself to leaders having to think differently about how they approach using them and incorporating them into their teams. So that was the main thing that spurred me. I don't know if there was one kind of specific critical moment that made me realize this, just what I've observed over the last couple of years.
No, totally agree. And I think this is something, we all have to realize at this part of juncture of the AI culture that we are all kind of embracing right now, that it's very critical for us to have that mindset of how we can adopt AI, and also not only like whether you're technical or non technical leaders, we all
Mhm.
need to get our work or anything as such influenced by this transformation. So thanks, David, for your perspective. To continue with the next segment of the Q&A section, I'm going to pass it over to Mac.
Perfect.
Thanks, Sam. David, you talked about executives moving from focusing on individual tasks to orchestrating AI-driven workflows across different functions, right? That sounds transformational, but it's also pretty abstract. Can you paint us a vivid picture of what this actually looks like when a senior executive makes this transition successfully?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are just tons of examples you could pick from. One that kind of comes to mind that could be a good example is a finance executive no longer needing to spend his or her time reconciling spreadsheets or dealing with kind of those level of mundane tasks. Really, the major unlock for business leaders here is the opportunity of being able to just have your time freed up away from those mundane tasks and towards what you're actually paid the big bucks to do, which is think strategically and allocate resources properly and really lead your team. So I think that shift, saving folks time in accomplishing the day to day, and being able to kind of refocus their time on what this North Star setting for their organizations and teams is kind of the biggest value add for executives here.
Can't agree more on this, David. Great answer, because I also resonate with you, because I feel like that all the executives level and there, I think, spend more time on critical thinking in terms of leadership, like, where they can spend more time, like for their business strategy stuff rather than doing this admin kind of work, because doesn't matter if it's a leadership or like anybody like has to spend substantial amount of time in terms of admin work. And I think, at least the initial level, they can put their focus to something else, right? And then they can leverage AI for that, for their admin related tasks. Completely agree.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's that ability to be able to use your time for high value decision making rather than things that need to get done still, but eat away important hours in people's schedules. So, and it's not just for the C-suite. This is also business leaders, middle management as well. Anyone who has any position where they're leading teams and organizing people. This is a monumental shift in their work. And I think one that's going to be really wonderful for them, able to have kind of more time to explore and work on those things that they actually probably enjoy doing more than those little tasks.
Right, right. Now, that's a great example that really helps, of course. Now, what's been the biggest mindset resistance you have encountered when helping executives make this kind of shift? And how do you help them move past it?
Yeah, great question. I think it's kind of what we were touching on earlier. It's that initial hesitancy, I think, due to executives knowing that they may not be the most technical or technically experienced people in this space. And honestly, it's an understandable thought to have. But again, what I would say is, this is uncharted territory for pretty much all of us. So I think it's an exciting time. So if you can reframe it in your head as an opportunity to learn and grow, you'll save yourself a lot of heartache as you're worrying about these things and understanding that, you can start small, you can do pilot programs. You don't have to act like a seasoned tech executive to succeed here. I think the important thing is being willing to learn, being open-minded, and being reassured that we're all kind of in a similar boat here, figuring this out together. So I think the more conversations you can have, the more comfortable you'll feel, and getting that kind of encouragement to start small with measurable pilots, things like that. I think that's where I've seen the most success in terms of executives kind of gaining that confidence and building it. So it doesn't come overnight. So don't worry if you feel a little unsure of yourself at this time.
Right. Absolutely. You mentioned that the first step is identify strategic pressure points. For our listeners trying to figure out where to start, what are the practical signals they should watch for? Slow decisions,
Yeah,
um, overstretched talent, value leakage. How do they know where AI can deliver those fast wins?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it varies a little bit, obviously from company to company, but even industry to industry. So depending on where you sit in your sector, it might be a different thing. Some general guidance that I can give is, start with the low hanging fruit, especially if you are not someone that you would consider to be a technical leader in this space. Look at kind of that burnout work, the day to day tasks. So the things that keep you and your team firefighting during the day, repetitive tasks that you can automate, bottlenecks. So if you have approvals that are stuck in long email chains, things like that, that can be taken care of, relatively simply. Other areas you can look at are kind of the surface level value leakage areas. So sales loss, costs rising in different cross-functional handoffs, little process things like that you can improve. Any of those small wins, if you stack enough of them together, you'll see pretty measurable impact relatively quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, couple of things actually, definitely. I mean, we can surely improve on, like sequential email chain, right? I mean, definitely there are a lot of improvements over there that we can do. Creating also side decks, right? I think there are a lot of
Mhm.
like the moving piece whenever we are creating the decks, so we can like also help AI. Perfect. Absolutely. So, for our next segment, translating pain to AI solutions, I'm going to pass it over to Sam.
Thanks, Matt. So one thing for sure that we all agreed upon that there are some pressure points or something that could be addressed through AI model transformation. There are some things that AI executives could actually leverage AI for that's going to help with in addressing some of the mundane tasks, allowing them to gain some efficiency that they can invest in driving some strategic growth and other strategic related initiatives. Now, I understand that they identify the pain point, but they're not the technical people. They're not the one writing the code or building AI tools because they don't understand the technical stuff and all kind of, you know. So in that case, I'm going to coin one statement that you mentioned in your article is that well-scoped AI use case. So, in your opinion, how do you think that they would actually define those world scoped AI use case, or how would they even like define and outline the outcome because they lack the technical knowledge? So, do you have any example that you can walk us through the process where a non-technical leader either they're going to team up with a technical architecture or a technical person to define that use case? So, if you can provide some sort of an example around that would be great for our listeners.
Yeah, so I think in terms of defining kind of those use cases, I think you take the same kind of best practices that you take to any kind of problem solving, right? So the first step for me at least is always defining kind of what the outcome is that you're looking for, right? So coming up with a quantifiable, measurable goal that you can track. So an example that we can talk about a little bit later, would be kind of simplifying or making more efficient procurement processes. So having an idea in your head of kind of what is possible in terms of results. I want to decrease our costs by X%, or decrease the time that we spend on these contracts by X%. Having those clear outcomes in your head early helps. And then two, the next step would be figuring out which data sets, which resources you have available to help you get to that answer, get to that solution, listing that out for whichever team or whichever tool you're using to kind of work towards that overall goal. And then framing the workflow as a decision or action or set of actions that needs to be taken, and then what the desired output is. So basically being as structured and as specific as you can when you're outlining the problem from the start. That enables you then to go to your engineering teams, to go to those really skilled technical specialists, to work together to co-create what it is that you're looking for in terms of solutions. So I would say, put on your leader hat, just like you would solve any problem, whether it's technical or not. Come up with a structured approach, understand what it is you're looking for, what it is that you need and or have to work towards a solution, and then take that to the experts and work with them to build the how it works.
Love that. Totally agree with you. Like, just put in your leadership hat and making sure that you know that what is the outcome that you're trying to strive for and what you're actually expecting to come out of those AI solutions. And once you have a blueprint of your plan ready, then you can work with any technical leaders or executives or even regular technical architecture or AI engineers to execute your plan to perfection.
The one other thing I would add too is just don't, and some companies already do this quite well, but don't let perfect get in the way of good. So, do your best to kind of get it right the first time, obviously. But I think the important thing, especially when you're trialing new technologies or new types of ways of working, just have a go at it with your teams. Be clear again on what the goal is, on what data, what resources you're using, but actually have a go at solving the issue, and trust yourselves and your collective intelligence and spontaneity to be able to troubleshoot as needed as you're kind of trialing these new methods of working.
Yeah, I kind of like that, the way you coined that, like don't just, look for perfection all the time because we are dealing with a new technology. We at this moment, we still kind of trying to find out the true potential of the AI tools and other stuff. So we just have to have the mindset of start from somewhere and then we'll just figure out as we go further along in this journey. So thanks, Dave, for your perspective on this one. Moving on to the next question of this segment. You suggested in your article that the treating AI agents like team members with clearly defined roles would be helpful in any organization who are actually exploring AI technologies for their strategical initiatives. So with
Mhm.
concern around AI becoming a black box, like a lot of issues going on at this moment, like the governance and the ethical and responsible AI perspective. How do you think that, what, in your opinion, what are the handoff checkpoints should leaders be thinking about in terms of putting some guidelines in place? So that's where we the balance between AI governance as well as the innovation in any industry verticals.
Yeah, this is a big concern for leaders. What I would say is that as your organization and teams start incorporating AI agents more and more into your work, you need to have really established and well-defined role clarity. So these agents need very clear job descriptions that are visible to all the relevant stakeholders involved in the plan, very specific scopes, tasks, decision rights, etc. And then there do need to be, especially early on, as we're kind of getting our feet under us with this new technology, we need human checkpoints, right? Humans in the loop, alerts and approvals set up for decisions that seem anomalous or certain exception things, high risk things. That's the job of the executive teams or the team leaders on the ground to make sure that they're all aligned on and set early on in whatever project they're working on. So I think it's definitely doable. And again, like everything else, more work up front saves you a lot of consternation later on. So that's a specificity of role clarity for the agents that you're using and understanding clearly what their decision rights are. Those are kind of the big key ones. And the result, if you do it right, is that you have AI tools that are auditable, explainable, and trusted. Everyone on your team, if they're interacting with or collaborating with agents or any other kind of automated tool, they need to be able to understand and voice how the tool works and how the tool works specifically in the context of what the team's using it for. So I think that kind of level of alignment early on in projects is going to be vital for teams.
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree with you because it's really important for us to define the outcome of the toolkits and also have a defined roles for each and every AI agents. And it's very crucial to like keep human in the loop. And I remember that we are having this episode with one of our other guests in a few weeks back, and he
Mhm.
also find the same term like we have to keep humans in the loop, just for responsible and governance perspective because AI is great. AI can drive a lot of stuff that human probably would take hours to execute, but we still need to make sure that we have a human oversight in the overall process. So thanks, Dave, for your feedback and for your perspective on this particular question. I'm going to pass it over to Mac for the next Q&A section.
Thanks, Sam. Um, Completely aligned with both actually David and Sam on the blueprint stuff. So
Mhm.
I can share like one of my experience with that. So I was talking to my CIO, and then they are constantly CIO and his team constantly looking for like the perfection, right? So my viewpoint is this: we cannot go for the perfection, at the initial level. So let the ball rolling first. So we
Mhm.
cannot go in terms of productivity output 100% accurate with this AI agent or AI related stuff. So let's first start, and then as we move forward, then we learn the process, right? And then I mean, so we can use it as a tool. So that is not actually like create the 100% accuracy or in terms of 100% productivity or output. So having said that, uh, um, AI is not plug and play, and despite what some vendors promise, what specific metrics and feedback loops should leadership teams put in place to monitor, learn from, and optimize AI initiatives over time?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mac. And just to touch on real quick on what you just said there with your interactions with your CIO, what I would say is that if leaders feel that they need as a requirement for things to be absolutely perfect or nailed on or error free. If it's that important, then I would say, be very cautious about implementing a brand new technology solution for those specific cases, right? So there's going to be bumps in the roads for sure. So, it's important to expect that. And like you said, kind of, important to get the ball rolling and build that momentum towards getting to the point where you do perfect how you want to use it in your workplace. So that's great. As to your question on metrics and feedback loops, I'll start with metrics. I think the kind of easiest ones to track and ones that I've seen with people that I've worked with and observed. The big ones seem to be efficiency metrics. So hours saved, cycle times in certain industries. Accuracy is obviously very important. So how many errors are being produced by these tools? Where's bottom line impact? So, cost savings or revenue lift. So, whatever the financial impact is, if you can quantify that, those are super powerful metrics to then take to your leaders and kind of, work on getting approval for more use or expanded use of these tools. In terms of feedback loops or kind of real-time reviews of how well the tools and agents are working. Again, it'll vary a little bit context to context. I think general good rule of thumb is review things more often than you might think you need to, especially at first. So maybe weekly output reviews of the work that's being put out by these agents. And then, based on those reviews, refine your rules, your prompt engineering, and or just continue iterating and collaborating with the agent that's producing the outputs. It's very similar to how we work with human teams, right? An associate you're working with sends you a deliverable and you review it and you work with them to kind of keep refining and perfecting it until it gets there. That's exactly the same kind of interaction that is going to be taking place for most of us here very soon with these autonomous agents. And then, you take lessons learned and scale what works from there.
Love that. Love that. So let's talk about something that gets broad attention quickly, ROI. You mentioned examples of saving 10,000 plus hours or cutting procurement costs significantly. How did those leaders quantify that ROI quickly enough to secure further investment?
Yeah, I think without getting too specific as to the exact situations I was working on or seeing, I think generally it's those leaders who had the most success are the ones who started small but with visible impact, right? So, for instance, organization that's involved in manufacturing or some kind of production, measuring the hours saved per workflow is extremely powerful to leaders of those kinds of businesses to see. Converting those hours saved to money spent or to capacity or production increased. That's huge. All right. And an example could be if you're looking at your contract review automation process, and you're able to automate that. So you're saving, 15 hours a week, let's say. That's clear ROI that you can easily quantify really quickly and show your leaders, hey, this is the impact we're having with these tools. It's not only saving us that time, but it's also allowing us to use that saved time then to do other things that also, bring in more revenue or help kind of find areas where you can be more efficient. So those quick wins will self-fund your future AI investments. If you can figure out those areas, those low-hanging fruit areas where you can trial things that are moderately to pretty well impactful with low risk maybe at first to start, I would say definitely go after those for sure. And start stacking those little quick wins, and quickly they build up and tell quite a powerful story.
You actually reminded me that my current company, Pfizer, where we didn't even touch any client's data, like this is actually, we didn't touch initially, like when we are implementing AI. We rather first touch our internal data, like for our internal finance, internal procurement stuff, also the low hanging fruit for us first. And then we have seen the result first, like, what is the improvement in terms of percentage, like what is the tangible stuff. And then from there, that when we got the result, then we actually scale it up to the next level. And then we also going to touch for the client side as well. So I completely actually resonate with that what you just said. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a really great approach, right? Because from a governance perspective, right, the lowest risk is with your own data, right? So you want to really make sure that you're tight and really understand how these tools work and what the safety and risk implications are before you then start incorporating external data or client work, things like that. So it's easy to get really excited about the capabilities, but you definitely want to keep risk in mind and make sure that you're being responsible and taking care of your clients and stakeholders and doing things the right way. So it sounds like you all are doing that. So that's really great to hear.
Yeah, can't actually agree more on that. So thank you so much for the answer. And for my next questions, I'm going to pass it over to Sam.
Thanks, Mac. So the just to piggyback on, obviously the leaders have to define ROI. They have to think about those low-hanging fruits
Mhm.
where they can address AI or implement AI efficiently, and that's going to help them to kind of spend gain some efficiency that they can invest in, like building some strategic initiative that's going to build, bring more revenues and stuff. We totally get that, but in order to understand those pressure points and stuff, even the leaders have to kind of upskill their technical capabilities. They have to understand AI and stuff. So I mean, in your opinion, what shifts or upskilling tactics a leader should follow to successfully boost their confidence, especially someone who at the C-suite level?
Yeah, it's I think with an area that's changing so quickly and evolving so rapidly, I think the first step is just take in as much as you can. So read articles that come out, learn from industry experts, attend conferences if you have the time to, and really kind of hear what's going on in the space and what's coming. Get more familiar with the language being used, understand kind of the core concepts. I think that level of kind of fundamental understanding is just really important to build your own confidence. And then from there, you can kind of figure out which areas or which kind of niches are most applicable to your line of business or to your specific role. And then you can start diving in deeper there. But I would say the first step is just kind of get a base level of fluency in the AI machine learning sector, understand kind of how it works at a high level. And as much as you can, if you're a leader in your organization, surround yourself with folks who live in it. So, find someone who works day to day with these tools or, is experienced in them and bring them along with you and have them there with you to help translate, to help teach you. I'm a firm believer that we can always be learning. So I think it's important to kind of find those people who can help you on your journey and figure out what specific areas exist that you need to kind of build up your chops on.
Yeah, no, love that. Continuous learning is the main key to success, especially in this era of AI, and especially like literacy is must not only for any like a technician or engineers or someone at the like a lower level of the organization. It's also must for the C-suite executives, especially that if they learn more about AI, they would know how to implement AI to drive
Yeah.
their business strategy. So
Yeah.
love
And
that. Thanks, Dave.
I would say too that the technical leaders and experts in this space, they are so excited to hear how their new tools and these new technologies are going to be impacting people and businesses. They would love to hear from non-technical leaders. So just reach out. I've yet to meet a person in the space who has not been willing to have a conversation and been excited that there's interest. And there's obviously enormous potential, like generational opportunity here to kind of learn and grow with this new wave of technology. And so, just reach out and don't be bashful about asking questions and getting involved.
So to our listeners, so as Dave mentioned, like it's always we need to have that continuous conversation with like-minded people like David, who kind of like wanted to embrace the idea of AI and also trying to help the non-technical leaders and executives and how they can adopt AI more swiftly and how they can revamp their AI literacy to help their organizations. Thanks, Dave. Now, the last question for this section is it's kind of like a little bit of a shift from the positive side. It's like we
Mhm.
always have to think about the risk. Okay,
Yeah.
as someone who worked in the risk industry for a long time, I would always consider risk at first before I even start thinking about some winning points. So to keep put that into perspective, what are some potential pitfalls that leaders should watch out for to avoid AI initiatives failing due to leadership gaps or any lack of educational purpose?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. I think the big ones would be, kind of what we were speaking about a little bit earlier, jumping the gun and using new tools that you're not familiar with on, higher risk problems or challenges that you're trying to solve. In the interest of, doing it quickly or doing it better, I think it's important to kind of know going into, your initial uses of these tools, kind of what are the areas where I have a little bit of margin for error in terms of, if things go sideways, it's not going to be as big of a deal. Whereas if you start right off the bat, trying to leverage client data with a new machine learning model, and you're not really sure how the machine learning model is going to work, or you're not really sure if the clients are aware of how you're using the data, that may not be the best way to kind of dip your toes in the water. And so I'd say that first one, just kind of having a clear idea of the types of workflows you want to, try and address with these new tools. And the second thing is kind of, I think there's a understandable, I'd say, kind of hesitation or concern with AI. People talk a lot about the job replacement, those kinds of implications that can be worrying or anxiety inducing for your teams. So I think just, again, being good leaders, being cognizant of what your teams are thinking, what they're worried about, understanding those, using your EQ, your emotional intelligence to make sure that you're really leading, from a values first approach, being transparent as possible with your people on kind of how tools are being used and the potential for them. Those are the kind of things that you need to be cognizant of as you start to kind of incorporate more of these tools into your work.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you. Even if this AI era is very exciting, it's also creating a lot of uncertainties about
Mhm.
like job and stuff. People talking about that AI is gonna take over humans' skills and human jobs and stuff, right? So in that
Mhm.
case, as a leader, we have to bring some sort of like mindset where people won't be kind of like concerning more about losing their jobs to AI, rather how they can uplift their literacy so they can do something else that they never thought of doing, like a few years back. So I totally agree with you, Dave, on that respect. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Matt for the final Q&A section.
Thanks, Sam. David, I completely agree with you the way you said the lack of the technical chops. So you mentioned about the conference, editing conference, maybe like the AI course or whatever, because in most of the organization, the leaders, such they are encouraging their employees to enroll for the AI courses or to go
Mhm.
for AI talks and everything. But at the same time, for a non-technology person, I feel like it's kind of overwhelming to start with
Mm.
because there are so many direction and it's kind of sometimes too much overwhelming for them because there is a product prototyping, then there is a vibe coding, then there is a vibe marketing. Is a new terminology for the marketing.
Yeah.
There is a LLM, then in LLM there are so many LLMs, so it's kind of overwhelming. So I think someone should go for the like which is immediately they need to implement in their functionality, like on their roles, like what they're doing in their company.
Mhm.
And I think like that's the way to start. That's what I feel actually.
Yeah. I think that's super important. I think it's spot on. As leaders are kind of getting their feet wet and understanding kind of how this world works and the opportunities for them and their teams. I think it's really important to also, as much as they can, involve their employees early. So as you're implementing these pilots, like make sure your employees are co-designing the pilots with you, that you're working with the people who these tools are going to be actually touching, who they're going to be working with them day to day. And then highlight and elevate their successes, right? So as they're learning, as teams are growing, really make it visible that people are going out on a limb and doing these exciting new things, and showcase kind of what these future roles or evolving roles might look like. Show how staff is moving from their kind of normal traditional day-to-day roles to more creative, strategic, or even just having more time to be with customers, that more exciting work for them that they enjoy more. And highlighting those things are really important, and that'll motivate people to continue learning and not being scared about the future, and feeling like they have control and feel empowered in their own ability to learn and grow themselves. I think that's
Absolutely,
super important.
absolutely. Now, let's be honest. Sometimes the technology is the easy part. Change management can be much tougher. So, how can non
Yeah.
technical leaders proactively address team concerns about AI potentially replacing jobs or disrupting company culture?
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question. Honestly, the first step I think is being transparent, acknowledging things openly. So, as much as you can, I know different situations call for different timings in terms of communications going on and things like that. But as early as possible, communicate clearly and honestly. Treat your teams with respect and dignity. Don't insult their intelligence by lying to them and/or just obviously skirting around issues. Frame AI as an augmenting tool, not one that means it's automatically replacing people. I personally, I'm an optimist. I think that we're going to see a boom in opportunities and kind of new routes to productive and meaningful work. through these advancements in technology. But that's not to say that it's not going to be, tumultuous in these first few years. So just acknowledge as much as you can that there are going to be speed bumps, learning curves, all of those things. But again, framing the opportunity, showcasing those future opportunities as much as possible, and involving people and teams as early as possible in those those pilot programs, whatever decision making process that they're able to be a part of, including them as much as possible. That gives everyone a sense of comfortability and familiarity, and those things, whether things look good or bad at certain times, having visibility and having leaders that you trust and who communicate with you maturely and respectfully, that always, regardless of the situation, that always provides a lot more confidence and trust. And I think those are kind of the key areas for leaders to really focus on as they're helping their employees grow and develop.
Love that. Love that. So for our listeners who are ready to take action, maybe they're thinking, okay, Dave's convinced me. I want to lead from the front of this. What would a practical 90-day pilot plan look like? Take us from the AI readiness audit all the way through to launching that first automated work.
Yeah. So, I think it does start with an AI audit there. So I think you want to account for, again, kind of the data you'll be using and have access to, the processes that are being affected, the teams that are involved in whatever the project is. So taking a couple weeks to kind of level set with kind of what the parameters of the project are and the resources you'll be drawing from. Is always a good first step. And then, from there, once you see kind of what's available to you to pursue, picking kind of, I would say picking one high impact, low risk workflow to work on with clearly defined, metrics and KPIs to kind of objectively measure your success is important. And then from there, building that pilot out with as many people involved in the process as possible, as early as possible, and kind of co-creating what that pilot's going to look like, building in where those human checkpoints are going to be, understanding the cadence at which you're going to be reviewing outputs from automated tools, it's kind of level setting there. And then after that, the last month is launching the pilot and measuring those KPIs and getting your ROI. So that you can then report back to leadership and show whether this was successful or not successful, what the key lessons learned, good and bad, were, and then understanding where or how you can scale it going forward, or which other workflows you can kind of pick to pursue next.
Great. So if a leader listening to this and wants to take one concrete step forward implementing agentic leadership next week, what would you recommend?
One step forward, I would just say pick an AI topic that seems interesting to you. It can be as relevant or irrelevant to your specific job or desired job as you want, but just pick one area and decide that you want to set an hour or two aside during the week to dive deep and learn what you can about it and see how what you learn affects your kind of initial thoughts on the area. I think, as you mentioned, Mac, before, like, it can feel overwhelming because there are so many different areas to explore here in the artificial intelligence and machine learning world. But, I think that also presents an opportunity where there's so many different things you can pick up and learn, right? So I'm just pick an area that interests you and get your feet wet, and maybe reach out to someone who's already involved in the space and see if you can grab a 15-minute chat with them. Again, like I said, like most people I've come across are, if they have the time, they're happy to give 15 minutes to just do a quick Zoom call or phone call just to chat and meet new people. So I would say just be brave and just start learning as much as you can.
Love that. And even though, like if some people, they are kind of a shy, like, who doesn't know about AI stuff, doesn't technology much, even though they can easily reach out to those people that who are already far ahead with the AI, right? I mean, book some time for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, just for Zoom or Microsoft Teams, right? Just to have a walkthrough session. Love that. So I think it's time for wrap up, and I'm going to pass it over to Sam.
Thanks, Mac. Dave, this conversation has been incredibly practical and actionable, and I'm pretty sure my listeners would agree with me. So now, to that point, what kind of listeners would connect with you and learn more about your journey in the AI leadership space, specifically your journey from opera singer to a business world?
Sorry, you cut off a little bit at the end there. Are you asking how they can get in touch with me, or what about my background? Sorry.
Yes, definitely. Yep. How they can get in touch with you.
Perfect. Yeah. So LinkedIn is great. You can just search my name, David Catalano, on there is wonderful. Happy to be in touch. So please, if you want to chat more, send me a message or a connect request. Always happy to chat and meet new people. Yeah, so that's probably the best way to reach me. But yeah, always happy to chat. And please reach out if you want to get to know me, and I would be happy to share more about my experience and stories from my career with you.
Definitely. I mean, they would love to know about how you transform from an opera singer to a business leader.
Yeah, it's a long story, but it was a fun adventure, I can say, and I definitely had a lot of help on the way from people who knew and know a lot more than I do about many things. So again, just to reiterate my earlier point, like, just reach out to people who seem to be more experienced than you, and go in with an open mind and a kind spirit, and you'll make great connections and learn a lot and have a good time along the way. So I was very lucky to have many people like that in my life, and try to do that as much as I can for people. So always happy to connect.
Love that, Dev. Thanks for joining us and sharing your valuable insights on leading AI transformation from the executive level. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you both. I really appreciate the time, and it was great to be on.
Thanks
So thank
so
you.
much.
And especially thanks to all of you for listening to the episode of Inside Assemble AI. If you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe and share it with your executives, business leaders, or anyone responsible for driving AI strategy in their respective organization. Until next time, this has been another episode of Inside Assemble AI, delivering our core message. Keep innovating, but keep it strategic. See you next time.